Okay, let's just get started because you don't want to hear me. You want to hear these guys. Let's start with Jennifer Branchini. Now, I've got a little intro here for her. It's pretty impressive. In fact, it made me feel like I need to work harder after I read it. Jennifer's one of our top agents in the Pleasanton office. This year, she was installed as the East Bay president of the Realtor Association. This lifelong agent has exciting plans for her local association. You could say real estate and entrepreneurship are in her blood. She grew up with within a family of business owners, and her aunt is a real estate broker. By the time she was in her late teens, Jennifer was assistant to the Black Hawk agent and was rapidly learning the business. Now she's coming up on 16 years as a successful top producing agent. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. All right, let's start off with the first question. What is East Bay right now doing to bring in leaders?
Okay, well, it's Bay East.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bay
That's
East.
okay. It's Monday, I know.
Get it
Inspiring leaders. What are we doing? We've got a couple of groups that we've been working on the last several years. One is the Young Professionals Network, which is something that I spearheaded in 2010. It's kind of kicked off across the nation as well. And what it is it's a group where we work with young realtors coming into the business to show them that they can not only sell real estate, but they can also help to work towards the future of what our industry looks like. And then one of the other things that we've done at Bay East this last year is we created a group called the Leadership Development Committee. And what that is we changed kind of the way we brought in volunteers to introduce them to what's available at the association for them to get involved with, kind of find their passions. And we do dinners, which are very casual setting dinners in our offices downstairs, set them up like a cafe, and have just conversations. So we get to know people. They get to know who we are as well. The leadership team is there. Tricia Thomas is usually there. We have staff, all of that. So it's a very comfortable environment. And then we also do coffee. It's kind of like a coffee talk with leaders, and there's always a talk about trust or commitment or different things that we see in our business. And it just creates this great I don't know, just a different approach of bringing in people to show them that they can give a little bit of their time, but also wanting to find what they're passionate about.
Let me ask you this. I know it's not in these questions. Now I'm into this. Now that I've heard the first answer, now I'm into it. You obviously, ran and wanted to be the president of East Bay. What is it that you want to do? Obviously, you saw a need. You wanted to go over there. Mm-hmm. Are some things you've identified? Do you have a vision for what you want to do? What is it this year that you want to get done? When you're done at the end of the year, you want to say you've accomplished?
Going into running for president, it's a 4-year commitment. Right. So you start with treasurer, and then president-elect, and then president, and then past president. So it's very much a journey. So when I said I'm going to run for treasurer, I didn't have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. Mm-hmm. But what I see being involved at the local, talking with members, being involved at the state association and also the national association, is we are in such a point of change in our industry. There's so many things that are coming in. There's all these threats that are coming into us as realtors, to homeownership, all of that sort of thing. And looking at that sort of futuristic, kind of the 35,000, view perspective of saying we need to really be proactive and be moving forward. And so that's one of my biggest things is what can we do to make sure that we are relevant in the future? Right. So, that's working with, I work with a mobile task force for Realtor Property Resource, working on helping them develop a product that will be great for our members, that is very user-friendly. It's making sure we have younger people coming into the business because we have the 4 generations working in real estate. And one of the biggest threats is we have retirement coming for a lot of people very quickly. Leaders, probably CEOs, lots of things happening in the industry as a whole in organized real estate.
I know myself and Matt are getting really old.
No,
so,
I'm not saying that, but the whole thing is history matters, right? So we need to make sure that we have people coming in that are learning kind of what's happening. It's that mentoring,
right?
So that when people do start to retire that are in high positions, we're not left out there in the cold like we don't really know where we've been to know where to go.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things, but that's more of kind of what kind of fuels me at this point.
So are there any things in particular that Bay East is doing to advocate fix MLS, tax reform, anything specific you can give us, any political stuff going on? You can
so real estate's a relationship business, right? So our whole existence is about relationships. And Bay East's point in the advocacy side of things, people don't really know what advocacy is. Like, what is that? What does that mean? Well, we are out there actively interviewing candidates that are looking to run for positions in our local, for our local elected positions in all of our cities that we are involved with, that our members are living in and selling in. And so we create relationships with those candidates to understand where they're coming from, educate them about what's happening in real estate.
Do you get that information that you guys find out to the agents so we can be more informed when we go to actually vote?
Yes, we do. So what the process is, the committee just went through 2 or 3 days of interviewing, and then we just at the board of directors last week approved a list that they submitted of candidates that they support that support realtor and home ownership issues, and then that will also go out to the members for that. And then just in general as home ownership stuff, looking at on the higher level, we've got so many things. So I made a list because I can't remember everything off the top of my head, but the threats that are going on are, we've got tax rate brackets looking to be changed, capital gains increasing the percentage, federal loan limits, they're looking to decrease those from 417 to 400 and 625 to 600, which would really affect California. Mortgage interest deduction, they're looking to move that from $1 million down to 500, which again would not be good for California. And repeal of state and local tax deductions. So there's several more, 1031 exchange, repealing those guidelines. So there's so many threats out there. So it's not, it's what we do locally, but then there's also these other things that, we're advocating. And so when our members get the calls to action, now there's Twitter calls for action. You can do it on a mobile app. It's really important to voice your opinion.
Historically, our lobby has been pretty good.
They are.
Do you still see that? Are they as strong as they've always been?
I do, and I really truly believe that NAR will be moving much more towards an advocacy organization.
It should. I think moving towards advocacy and maybe away from competing with the broker is a good move. I think it works for all the small companies and the big companies if they go that direction. I really like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes at that level, but not.
Yeah. Good. So let's change the subject here.
Yes.
So you are a mom of 3, 6, 9, and 13. So how do you balance career, leadership, and family life? I got to hear this. I can barely take care of myself. And I'm looking at this. How is it you have time for anything? I'm very curious. You must be an excellent time manager.
I always tell people the more involved you are, the more scheduled you are. So you have to be more on task. And I'm not going to say that, there's nothing perfect about my life, because there are weeks like last week where I worked until 10:30 every night. I was doing an addition, and I worked in real estate 51 hours last week, volunteering 12 hours, and then was working with kids, attending school programs and as many sports games as I could, and I didn't get to make all of them this last week. But that's not always normal. It kind of ebbs and flows, and sometimes it all comes at once. But getting ready this week to head to CAR tomorrow night. So for the rest of the weeks, you have to squeeze it all in. But I think I have an amazing husband who is, he's a sports writer. He covers the 49ers. So he works really hard between.
He's an okay golfer, too.
Yeah.
Just okay.
I
have a story there, but I won't tell it.
Yeah. He works really hard between July and about the Super Bowl, and then he has quite a bit of time off in the spring, which allows me to work really hard during the spring months, which is the most important in our business. And then in the fall, I tend to pull back a little bit and, don't work as many weekends as I would this time of year. So that really helps. And then, of course, family helps. And the kids know real estate. They're in the office with me. They're running to inspections with me at some time, at different times. So they get it, and they know this in the car when I put my hand up. It's like, don't say a word because I'm talking with a client. Yes. So they get the signs from me. So
that's good stuff. Good. So how demanding is the president of Bay Area, Bay East schedule? How demanding is that?
It depends. We've got a couple, standing meetings. We've got executive committee, so that's a meeting that we have once a month, which is about a 3.5-hour meeting. And then we have our board meetings, which is also once a month, which is around 3.5 hours. And then there's different things that I'll speak at. Like we just had a summit with all of our local elected officials. I facilitated that. We have different committees that I present at, and different events in our community that, I think we're doing a roundup out in real estate roundup out in Livermore. I'll be speaking at that. So again, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's a lot in a week, and sometimes there's just a couple of things. So it's just scheduling around that.
So you're having a pretty good year this year, production-wise. You sound like I'm the type of person that if I have 2 things on my to-do list and that's it, I don't do them very well. If I have 18 things, I get them all done real well for some reason, because you get it. I think there's a certain energy and a rhythm that you get when you've got a lot of things on your plate. Obviously, it works for you because your business is doing well this year. Anything in particular you're doing different? What's happening in your business this year for you to have such a good year?
I don't think that there's anything different that I do. My clients, it's mostly repeat and referral business at this point. I think there's a question about prospecting, and I haven't, right in 2014, there's not a lot of prospecting other than just continuing I'm very hands-on. So it's like meeting with my clients, having coffee with them, making sure I'm nurturing those relationships. And then several of them are active with me on Facebook. They see what I'm doing. So they kind of understand, that I am still in the business. I just do this also.
Let's go to this repeat referral business you were talking about. Do you have a specific system that you implement to ensure that you get that steady flow of business, or is it just intuitive with you?
A lot of it is intuitive because of my commitment this year. I'm going to be honest, my systems aren't, locked in. So a lot of it is, making sure that I'm contacting them, getting in front of them, whether it's even just a text. I was driving by a client's house the other day, and there was this lighting and trucks and all sorts of things, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's my client's house. And I texted him. I said, what is going on? And he said, oh, they're filming a commercial. Come over. So that ended up, I went over, we chatted, they referred me a client from that, so it's just being there, and just, there's no set rules.
Got it. So where does your passion come from? Obviously, you're excited to get up every day and work these 16-hour days and volunteer and association and real estate, family. What motivates you to do all this?
Well, if I look at it in different categories, if it's for my family, it's leading by example. So wanting to make sure that my kids see that they can do whatever they want to do, which is something that my parents instilled in me, was always, plan what you want to do and do it. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't do something. And so I have 2 girls, and my youngest is a boy, and the girls are, they've grown up around me doing this, and so it's fun to see my 13-year-old running for ASB president. She just did that this year, and juggling and being very focused on what she wants to do. And I know that that excites me for what I do, to continue to do that and make sure that I spend time with them. And then on the real estate side of things, I love the people I work with. I don't need to sell everybody a house in this area, because I want to work with people that are most like me, because, I mean, it's a 24-hour job. Mm-hmm. So I love the people I work with. And then on the volunteer side, it's seeing the work that I do make a difference in the industry. And if it's not just me personally, it's working in groups that make a difference and help that. And as long as I can see that, I'll continue to do it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Being the East Bay president, has that helped your business at all?
I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say that the presidency has helped my business, but it's the overall involvement over the years that has helped my business. So probably, if I count every year from my involvement with people that I know all over the U.S., I would say I probably get at least 4 or 5 different referrals. Either they're coming in or I'm sending them out, and that, you know, it's a bonus. I don't put that in my business plan, but I do, you know, nurture. I love to help. I love to share. I don't believe that, you know, we need to be secret about everything we do. So it's really fun to have these relationships with people all over the U.S. that you can say, hey, try it this way. And that cultivates those relationships. Then when they say, oh, I have somebody moving to your area, I'm definitely referring them to Jennifer. So
family, real estate business, Bay East president, husband. Do you find any time for just you?
Yes.
You get away. And what is that time like? What do you do? What is it that when you get away so you can decompress?
It's running.
Oh, is it really? You're a runner.
I'm a runner, yeah. I usually do 1 half marathon a year and several races during the year. So it is really it's just, it's getting out, and that's my quiet decompressing time when there's nobody around.
Gotcha. That's good stuff. So I noticed something you said earlier about who you work with or your clients. You're picky about that. Describe that to me, and why is that?
Why am I picky?
Yeah,
well,
what are you picky about?
I want to make sure they have the similar values that I do, and are very.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that I don't want to work with the people that none of us want to work with, that lie, one of my clients said they have a compulsive liar client, so they never know when they're telling the truth. Right. You know, the values as far as how I work, I'm very honest and upfront, and I don't want someone second guessing what I'm doing all the time. I don't second guess what they're doing. Trust, you know, I think we all want the same thing, but there is a point where there's certain people that I let go of, because I know that if I'm holding on to them, it's what I tell newer agents too. Don't hang on to everybody, because you need to take them to bed at night, because we don't let go. And this not, what is that? Not literally, but figuratively.
Right.
You know,
I want to clarify what she said about taking her clients to bed. She's not advocating sleeping with your clients.
No.
She's saying that you get to manage the emotion in your brain with these clients if you keep hanging on to them. It is a great thing to fire a client at times. It's amazing what frees up after you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a big relief when you know, because they can really mess with who we are and get us off track a little bit. Right. And so it's making sure that you're with the people that you feel good about, and you know, it's so rewarding when someone says, we're so glad we're working with you. We trust you, you know. So I think that's really important. So that's what I mean.
I think you're able to do that easily because my sense of you is you're not attached to the money.
Right.
When you're attached to the money, you manipulate the process to get it, and you will work with clients that may not align with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're attached to doing a good job and telling the truth and all the things you've mentioned, it's funny how the money just shows up to the right clients. It's really good stuff. This is an interesting question. I'll ask it. How does the flexibility of this career help you? That's kind of obvious. You need the flexibility.
Right.
I couldn't imagine you in a 9-to-5 job.
Oh, I think I would go crazy. I would. Yeah, I think about it like, oh, yeah, having a steady paycheck. Oh, no, I'd rather it this way. Yeah, no, it's great because, it's like last week carving out 2 hours so I could go watch my daughter play volleyball. Like that's something that I couldn't do. But
is the middle child?
My older
You're
one.
old, the 13-year-old that's running, right? That's running for?
Well, she ran for president. There were 9 kids that were running, and it's for 8th grade next year. And she got second, so she's the vice president. So yeah.
So how's her volleyball team doing?
Volleyball's great. I think they've won every game. This is their last week, so.
So to keep with that, that'll.
Yeah, she enjoys it.
College in the future.
And she plays softball. So, and I think her softball translates to volleyball, so it's a good transition.
She obviously got all her athletic prowess from you, definitely not from your husband.
I think he might agree with you on that.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for
the
Ready Show. You're amazing. And if there's anybody that some of our younger agents should emulate as you, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a little update on the Expo. Hopefully you have this on your calendar. Friday, May 16th, 9 to 1. We're having our 4th annual Tech Expo for short. It's our online marketing and social media expo. We've got some great speakers. We've got some of the classes up here on the PowerPoint here, but it's basically you're going to learn a lot more about Client Connect, your website, your email marketing strategies, as well as a lot of other things. Online reviews. Are you struggling with whether or not to go on Yelp and Zillow and do online reviews? We're going to have a top producer panel talk about that and how they've made some traction in their business. A lot of other great topics, so please be sure to put that on your calendar. Carpool, it's going to be at the Pleasanton Hilton on Friday the 16th.
Of all the events we have every year, that is by far my favorite, is the Online Marketing and Social Commerce Expo. So to see all you guys there. Next on our list of speakers is Rich without the...
Glenn Bell and Matt Cord.
There's Glenn Bell and Matt Cord.
Lobbing up the assist.
I've been on the radio show multiple times, but I haven't been the host before. I'm just Keith Robinson. Today we're going to talk about the quarterly market update, our first quarter, what we've been through. Obviously, we've already been through it, so it's like describing the water as we've drowned. But I think that we can learn a lot from the first quarter and maybe discuss where we're going. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Glenn to lead a discussion and go through the market update. Matt, it's all yours, buddy.
Thanks, Rich. So you guys have heard me on here a bunch of times, and I'm really pretty fortunate to have Glenn in my office for a lot of reasons, but what you're seeing here from the slide perspective is something that we do in our meetings with some regularity. And what we generally do is take a fairly high national look and then drill down to local stuff. And Glenn has been tracking local numbers, pulling out data from the MLS for, 7-8 years now?
Since 2005.
So we'll run it exactly the same way we'd run one of our meetings. We'll talk a little bit about some of the national statistics. And the reason I put national in there, and I know we try to focus on hyper-local, but the reason I do this is generally the information that is disseminated to your clients is coming from national outlets. Because of that, the questions that you get asked tend not to be as local as they could be. So having answers for both of these becomes really, really helpful. So just jumping in really quickly, the first slide there, and I think we shot over it, is the market up, is it down? The only reason we put that one in there is you will find there are a lot of articles that are being written right now that are saying, well, sales have slowed a lot, so the market must be slowing as well. Clearly, we know that's not the case. Moving into these pending home sales and existing home sales, which should be the next couple slides here, They're way low. And the reason they're so low for us in particular is there's just not enough to sell. So one of the things that you've got to watch too, when you've got articles that put out both pending and existing, those are the same statistic. Pending homes become existing sales. So don't let people compound the information there. That's really one number. Your pendings become closings. The closings are the numbers that we report on. So again, I think getting into what the broad look of the market is right now is we're seeing a really, really strong rebound that's continued from last year going through this year. We have seen really a huge push away from any distressed sales, REO, short sales. So you see that lower category from 250 and below, it's really just not even in play anymore. And if you look at the 250 and above, particularly look at 750K to $1 million, how robust that part of the market is. And this is really speaking to the fact that even though sales are down due to the lack of inventory, we're seeing a huge bump in prices due to the competitive nature of the market. So this one is just a U.S. look. I mean, this is really quickly just to show you that big mountain in the middle. We remember that. We're not there from a national standpoint, right? We've still got home prices that are creeping up that way. However, when Glenn starts to talk about his numbers, you will see that in a lot of areas, we're back to those pre-bubble prices. So some of the articles that you're going to start to see now is there another bubble, right? Pay attention to that. Same thing. Home prices coming back. So we broke this one out a little bit differently this time around and wanted to try to give some information for you as to demographics that you may want to focus on. And there's two groups. There's both the millennials and the baby boomers. 3 years ago when we were talking about millennials, there was really a lot there was a disconnect between what we thought this group would want to do and what they were actually saying. And at that point, they were really disenchanted with the housing market to begin with. They had seen what had happened through the bubble. They did not think that this was a piece of their future going forward. But what we saw was about 2 to 3 years ago, there were some millennials that were seeing incredibly low home prices coupled with incredibly low rates and became first-time home buyers at the age of 25. And that group right now has started to spur on another first-time home buyer segment that is really pretty large. The interesting thing about it is millennials in particular, you've got those that bought 3 or 4 years ago that were 25 that are now 29. And they're going on their second home because their first purchase was a condo, they're now married, they may have a kid, and now they're moving up. So don't focus purely on the fact that millennials are going to be first-time home buyers, right? There's a need for move up also. Without going through all of the points here, basically what's happening is we've got a generation of millennials that really believe now is the time to buy and that home ownership is part of the American dream still for them. This came out in AR. The slide before there was a pie graph, and really I thought the most interesting part of this was how evenly balanced it was between the Gen X, the millennials, and the boomers. This is the percentage of the buyer generation right now that we've got about 91% here that are very, very active in the market and not a clear leader between any of them. So your job really as an agent is getting as much information out there as you can and figuring out what your target group is. Is it the boomers that may be downsizing? Is it the millennials that may be getting in? Is it the Gen X's that are definitely moving up? I put this one in again to illustrate the fact that millennials have had a real, kind of ideology shift as to their feelings on home ownership. And it has now gone from, oh my God, home ownership is the worst thing that you can do. Look what happened to everybody 5 and 6 years ago, to now looking at it as a very real opportunity for them to create a life that's more fulfilling, that's going to really be part of their American dream going forward. This came out recently from the Pulte Home Group as well, and this was basically saying now that the statistic 3 years ago, it was half of that. It was about 42% plan to purchase a home. It's now 85% of millennials plan to purchase. 58% have increased their interest in purchasing a home in the past year. So you can see there is a real attitude shift as real estate starts to recover. So do the ideas around it. And these are the three main reasons for them: happiness, independence, and achievement. The last two there on the independence and achievement, there was a huge study that was done about how many millennials had actually moved back in with their parents, right, to save money. Things were tough. And now you're looking at home ownership as a way to get themselves a little distance, maybe from the family that had helped them out. Now they're looking for a little independence and achievement. It is still a notch in their belt to say, hey, I've done it.
Would you say, Matt, let's talk about the millennials just
Sure.
for a second, because we've got their behavior. We're now starting to feel the economy starting to move into what we call the echo boom. I don't know if you know what that means, but if you ever read, God, I wish I could remember the author's name. He wrote The Great Boom Ahead. He wrote this in 92, and he predicted the stock market would hit 10,000.
Right.
Back then it was like 1,200.
Right.
People thought he was nuts. It hit it. And if you look at his charts, then he said there would be a issue for a while as the baby boomers moved out of their peak earnings and into retirement, which has been happening. What did they say? 1,000 baby boomers retire every day or something like that. Anyway, the echo boomers are starting to come in. These are the children of the baby boomers that are now starting to get into their peak type of earnings. They're starting to move into that area. When you say home ownership, I don't see this on here. I see happiness, independent, and achievement. When the millennials and the echo boomers, they start to decide to have families. Traditionally, families start a lot younger. People in their early 20s, late teens were having kids. Now it's something that they almost wait till 30, 35 to do.
Yeah.
When these millennials start to really grow their families, don't you see that's probably going to be the big spike in the home ownership? I mean, it's a big reason why people buy homes for communities, school districts, these type of things.
Perfect. I mean, that's absolutely the case. And I think really the one thing that we're looking at is the size of the millennial population is massive, right? We had the boomers, then we had the echo boomers where population it's just a smaller group. And now you've got a group that spans, this probably 10 or 15 year period from early 20s to early 30s that some have already bought, some are actually moving up, and all are getting to a point where family stability, this is a really, really big thing for them. And that's going to be a huge opportunity for everybody that's in the business.
Yep, I agree.
Boomers. Good one. So here's the thing with baby boomers. The 57 of them plan to move from the home that they currently own, right? That's a fairly large percentage of those people that are there. But 72% plan on staying in state, right?
I don't get that. There's people that actually live. Are you ready for this? I don't know if you know this. There's people that actually live in like Ohio and Michigan. And they would stay there.
I've never even heard of those states. Yeah.
Shovel snow and drive on. There really is no perspective on this. I mean, I lived in Ohio and in Michigan, and I got to tell you, I really don't understand why those entire population of those states just pick up and leave and go somewhere where it's warm. I just don't understand that part. I think that number is actually lower, but I'll have to go with it for now. Sorry, I had to add that.
Yeah, they only interviewed baby boomers in California.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. This you'll actually, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, this study was done by a company called Better Homes and Gardens, so the information has to be accurate. So the other part of it too is if you get to the 25%, I think this probably speaks to those in Ohio, is buying a second home or a vacation home. That has been one of the things that we saw go dormant here when things got tight, right? You kind of hunker down, you stay with what your primary home is, and that's it. But now as we're starting to see the baby boomers their stock portfolios have come back. There's actual equity in their home. There is this ability to not only stay where they're at, but actually buy someplace where they'd like to go and visit several times a year. So this one's just really quick. The oldest baby boomer turns 68 this year statistically, and the youngest turns 50. There's a huge group there that are kind of the tail end of their peak earning years, but they have a very good handle on where they're at financially and what they can do. And here's a group that may be moving both laterally down or just looking for a second home. Really, this is just to illustrate that there's a huge opportunity with a group that has probably been in their homes for a very, very long period of time. So this is a quick jump into mortgage here, and I think really again, it's funny. So I get the conversations with some clients that come in with some of our agents that go, well, God, rates are really moving up, and I don't know if this is the time or not. And I'm like, well, yeah, it went from 3.5 to 4.5, but my God, is it cheap right now? And that shouldn't be a deterrent for anybody. So sometimes just having a really quick graph like this to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're crazy if you think money is an issue. 2013, 2014, it looks like a massive, hill was climbed there from 3.5 to 4.5, 4.25, 4.5-ish. That happened actually, if you look back to last year, that happened in about a 2-month period. We had a really, really big jump, and largely we've bounced around between this 4.5 range, and we've stayed there. That has not flexed a bunch, but I do think everybody would agree that every lending institution would feel a bit more comfortable the closer we get to 6.5 and the further away we get from 3.5. And that seems to be the trend.
That is probably one of the most misleading slides I've ever seen. I mean, that thing is...
No offense taken, Rich. Thank you.
Only one... Well, you didn't put the slide together.
Are you kidding me? I worked hard on this.
But it's... I mean, it should start at 3.5 and go up to 9, and then market it every 1%. It wouldn't look like that. I mean, that's graphing every little 1/8% change there. I think that's a little misleading on how much rates have risen.
No, I think that's a good point. I think the only thing that they're trying to illustrate, and this is Freddie Mac that put this one together. I think what they're trying to show is that when the jumps happen, they tend to be aggressive in the movement, right? We get the little kind of vibrations there that go back and forth between 4.25, and they'll go for a while. But when they move really quick. When they come down, it goes really slowly.
Well, they've already, the beauty about why they've leveled out is the investors out there, you have to look at mortgages really an investment by, mutual fund managers, these type of things. And so with the quantitative easing, meaning the slowing down of printing money, when that was first introduced by Bernanke, people freaked out. That's what shot it to 4. Then he came back, rephrased it. We're going to do this easily. We're going to just slow the printing presses down.
Right.
And so then everybody felt good about that. And then that's been hovering there all this time.
Well, I mean, what you're illustrating is true. I mean, the Fed is not going to be buying back at the amount that they've been buying back, but they're not shutting it off tomorrow, right? This is going to be a gradual phase out. And to be really honest, where we're at right now is as cheap as it is, it's probably not as healthy as it can be. I think as we move up a little bit more, you do find some stability. You get more people that are willing to invest in this market.
I mean, 1.5% on the CD isn't right for us either.
Well,
so you have to
of
look
course.
at the investment into this.
It's very, very true. This is Freddie Mac again illustrating what they think is going to happen from where we're at currently, but where we're going to end up at the end of the year in 2015. And they think there's going to be a pretty progressive, slow, gradual, but hey, if you're looking at right now where you're at 4.5, you're looking at the end of 2015 and it's 5.5. Hey, 1% is real money.
I will say that Freddie Mac has a similar history to NAR in predicting rates in the market and not really great batting average.
Right.
I will say based on the first quarter market results, I don't know if interest rates are going to get that high even by the end of 2015. The market took a stumble. Now, the beauty is, I don't know if you read today, but, the results of sales went up considerable in March, open business across the country to include the West. So a little bump up, but still 8% down from last year, March 2013, in open business here in California. But still, it's recovered a lot. I don't know if you guys felt it out there, but it was a little slow the first quarter. And I think that sent off some warning shots to the government on, hey, watch these interest rates.
Right.
We haven't fully recovered yet.
Hey, I mean, listen, this is all fine and good in a vacuum, right? We can all sit in the lab and say, here's what's going to happen, but there are global events, there are local events, there are national events that can impact every bit of this. So again, these are kind of, hey, if I'm having a conversation with buyers right now that are going, I'm going to hold off until rates go to 3.5, this is probably when I pull out this slide and say, hey, people smarter than me think that it's going to go the other way. So, again, for me, a lot of this stuff is more, they're conversational than they are gospel. I mean, I think a really good effect of this, I was reading something the other day where Time Magazine in 1964 had put a picture of a penguin on there and said, how to survive the upcoming ice age. They then reran the title about 2 years ago on how to survive the upcoming, global warming phase. So, in hindsight, we're all brilliant. When you're trying to predict the future, none of us tend to be that good. So this is Mortgage Bankers Association, Freddie and Fannie. They're giving their projections. The Mortgage Bankers Association, I've mentioned them before. This is actually a group of over 100 financial analysts that put together. Their numbers tend to fall more in the middle range as opposed to extremely conservative or outright, exciting. So they're the ones I tend to follow. 5.3 sounds right-ish. This again, I put this in there. You should feel free to manipulate this any way you want, but boy, I'm telling you, most people buy on what they feel their payment is going to be every month. If you can illustrate to them what the difference is in money costs from right now to next year, people will see this. And if you extrapolate this higher to $500,000 to $1 million, somebody sees a $700,000, $800,000 difference in what they pay monthly. That is the difference between somebody saying, hey, I'm going to sit and wait, or now's the time.
I would take this slide, and I wouldn't necessarily use it to get somebody to buy. I think we got enough buyers. This is a reason to sell. And the reason is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, with the rates going up, and it's predicted by Freddie, Fannie, Mortgage Brokers Association, this is going to shrink the buyer pool. There'll be less affordability in property. So right now, you've got a low interest rate. You've got a lot of people wanting to buy and competing. If you don't put your house on the market, this year, be prepared for a smaller pool of buyers when the interest rates go up in this chart. So if you're looking to get some sellers to get their property on the market, isn't this the optimum time to sell, by the way?
That's a great point. I mean, none of these things work independently of each other, right? I mean, a hot market exists because there are two parties involved.
Right.
So I love throwing this one in there, although I think it probably means nothing to somebody who's buying right now other than, hey, maybe your house will be worth more later. But we looked at the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ, and return on your investment had you bought January 1 of 2000. The return on all of those, you wouldn't be mad at any of them except the NASDAQ over there, and even that is probably not horrible.
It made up most of its ground just in the last 24 months back to the...
Yeah, I mean, we
it would have been 2000 to 2011. It wouldn't look like that.
And not only that, the return on investment in real estate, even in the downturn when we were looking at this, never got below 30 if you had bought in 2000. So, I mean, understanding that, hey, real estate is still a great investment. It's got all of the other aspects to it, but at the bottom line, this is an investment vehicle. Months of inventory, this is nationally, right? We've always talked about homeostasis sort of being somewhere between 5 and 6 months. So nationally, this is where it's at. Clearly, in our markets, we're not there. This looks like a much healthier nationwide understanding of, hey, look, we've got the right amount of buyers and sellers that are matching it up. For any of us that are here, we know that's not true. And Glenn, I mean, we're going to get to him here in a second to be able to really illustrate that. These last few slides, I always, again, the reason we put these together, or the reason I do it is my hope is that the agents that we've got will understand a little bit better, not only about the market conditions, but the value they bring. So I took a few of these quotes. This one from Seth Godin, who is fantastic. If you haven't read any of his stuff, he's kind of a marketing guru. But he said, the minute real estate listings went online was the minute that it was no longer sufficient that a real estate broker merely had information about real estate listings. Right? We don't have proprietary information anymore. What we have is a very, very astute means of taking the market, distilling it into bite-sized pieces, and conveying it to our clients. They are paying you for your understanding of the market. They're not paying you because you've got the inside scoop on a listing. Guy who I sometimes agree with and sometimes don't, but this quote is right. To provide value, real estate agents must not only provide information, but also insights into that information. It is no longer okay just to say, hey, here's what's happening. You've got to be able to sit there, consult with them, let them know what getting into this process is actually like and what you can do for them. One of the great things that I've always seen out there is the competition doesn't matter if your offering is unique. You don't care what listing agent B does because listing agent A, which is you, is so good. I don't care who comes behind me. But it's time for you to be able to refine those skills that your offering is unique enough to separate you from the others. And with all my babbling, let's get to Glenn, who's got actually real information.
How you doing? Okay, one of the things that I do when Matt and I get up in front of our agents once a month, we kind of do two different things. He'll talk about the national level, and then I'll kind of drill into some of the local things. And one of the things that I do is I'll track 38 cities, and I kind of do a little snapshot on what's going on in each one of those cities. I started this back in 2005. I went to a class with Rick Jiha that was on listing presentations. It was a 2-day class, and the one big thing that I took from that class was, as an agent, understand your markets and be the expert. And so I started immediately. I started tracking, I think it was 5 or 6 cities, and it kind of evolved and got to 38. I wish I'd done both counties. I never got to that point. But it was sort of a process for me, and it takes about an hour out of my month. I mean, it takes me about a day out of each month to kind of come up with these numbers. And I come up with charts, and I come up with graphs, and I get in front of everybody, and I sort of talk about all this stuff. And I think that the whole point of me doing these, running these numbers once a month is to kind of give me the big picture of what's going on with the markets, one. But two, now I've got a chance to talk to either clients or colleagues or friends that I know, and I could kind of, every time I get into, once somebody finds out that I'm a real estate agent, the first question that comes to me is, well, how's the market? How's the real estate market? And you've got to be able to answer that, one. And two, there's always an article that they've read in the newspapers that they'll ask you about, and you've got to be prepared to be able to talk about it. Usually they're talking about, they'll fixate on some sort of a number like median price. They'll do some sort of comparisons year over year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I do is, again, I'll track 38 cities, and I guess you don't have any of the slides?
You don't have the slides.
All right, let me just
Give me your website because you've got these numbers.
Yeah, I do. If you go to www.myeastbayagent.com, I'll post these, once a month. In fact, I'll be doing another posting in about probably 10 days, on the numbers that we had for April. But let me just give you a quick sort of rundown on the graphs that I do. What I'll do is I'll run one graph. It's on a city-by-city basis, and I'll track how many actives, how many homes are for sale, how many are pending, and this is at the end of the month, 31st of March, for example. And then what I'll do is I'll compare those two numbers, the actives and the pendings, and I come up with a ratio, pending over active ratio. And if you could think in terms of supply and demand, that's what you're using, is those principles, supply and demand. So when I have numbers over 1 on those ratios, that's telling me that I've got not enough supply and a bigger demand, therefore seller's market. So it kind of gives me the big picture in terms of what kind of a market are we in. And I'll compare that. I'll take the pending over active ratio, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll compare it and say, well, how did this look last year? How did it look 2 years ago? How did it look 3 years ago? Just so I have some sort of a framework to work in. The other thing that I'll track is month supply. So inventory, what are our inventory levels like? You saw Matt when he was doing the big picture, he was basically saying 5 to 6 months is what they were looking at. And when you drill down to the Bay Area, it's a completely different animal in a sense, because we're looking at, for the 38 cities I track, we're looking at a little bit over a month's supply. Okay? So the interesting thing is that it's still very, very, very low inventory. It's not quite as low as what was last year, but that's still driving this market. We've still got a very competitive seller's market. It's a different market than last year. Last year we had low inventory, but we had everything. Everything, it seemed like, was flying off the shelf. This year's a little different, and this is one of the other numbers that I come up with on these charts. Not only will I look at month supply, and I'll also look at do we have houses that are sitting? Do we have houses sitting 30 days? Do we have houses sitting 60 days? And how much of those actives are 30 and 60 days? And so this year it's interesting because a lot of these markets, for example, Berkeley, let's just take that as an example. I'll show Berkeley's got a little bit less than a month's supply. And yet we're looking at almost 45% that are sitting 30 days or longer. And if you go to 60 days, it's almost 25%.
So finally, fantasy pricing isn't working.
Well, this is what's interesting. It's a different market than last year. Last year, everything was flying off the shelf. This year, it's not the case. What you're having is you've got, I think, more selective buyers.
Maybe
what
their
they're looking
memory
for.
is, maybe they're remembering '07, '08.
Well, it could be.
Saying, you know what, paying $100,000 over the list price probably isn't the best thing financially for me to do. Maybe that's happening.
Well, no, yes and no. That's what's so interesting about this market because, for example, we'll have a meeting and we'll ask, I'll do these numbers, then we'll ask our agents. So we're getting two different stories. I take Berkeley, for example. There's a house, shows well, staged, they did everything right, remodeled, etc. Looks great. People love it, and they get 20 offers, and it goes for 100 to 200,000 over asking. Mm-hmm. Then I get somebody else that's got a house in Berkeley, and they can't get an offer. Why is my house not selling? I don't think that happened last year. So that's why I think buyers are a little bit more selective. I think maybe the psychology has changed some. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a speculation that, I mean, here's part of what's good about these numbers is you're starting to ask those questions. Why do I have such a low inventory, yet I've got houses that are sitting? And this is the other thing, too. It changes from city to city. It kind of changes. It's more of a local thing. So one of the things that I talk to agents about is you need to understand your markets, and you need to be the expert in one sense. So you got to really drill in. If you're talking to a homeowner about selling their house, they want to know about their neighborhood, what's going on with their neighborhood. So you have to do a little bit of homework. And that's where, when you're running these kinds of numbers, it kind of gives you a little bit of the big picture of what's going on. And it's funny because you'll take the city of Berkeley, for example, and there's 9 different markets there. So if you take the big picture with Berkeley, it's too broad, it's too general. But if you start drilling into these local markets, then you can start to make some sense out of it.
If you need help naming those markets, I would love to participate in naming the Berkeley markets.
I don't even know if you even need to go. I did have a slide. By the way, I do that. That's one of the things that I do. I do the same charts about every couple of months. I'll do the same charts where I actually drill into the Berkeley local markets and the Oakland local markets because, again,
that's really good stuff, Glenn.
Yeah, I mean, people are looking for specifics. You know, they really want to get a better idea. When you go into a listing presentation and you're talking to people and being able to get across to them, for example, in the city of Berkeley, that houses are selling on average for 10% over asking.
Right.
That's kind of good information to know.
Right. You know, it coincides with Matt's slide on we're no longer the protector of information. You know, you go out and you list $1 million house and you want to charge, let's say, $60,000. You better be good at what you do, be competent. And this is really good stuff. I mean, this type of information, if it's communicated to me by a real estate agent, I'm going to perceive that agent as actually being competent, being a market expert, somebody I want to list with. And that really separates you from, you know, a lot of agents are out there. I really applaud the work that you do, Glenn. I love this stuff. We could talk for hours on this. Well, unfortunately, we are running out of time. In fact, we're just at it. But let me ask you this. How do you market this data out? Do you use this in your prospecting? How does this position you? And how do people that get it from you feel about it? Give me that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, sometimes it could be too much information. And I can't really focus in on it all the time. I mean, if you're just talking about numbers, after a while, the client's going to go to sleep. Yeah. But here's it's the big picture that you're trying to get across.
Right.
When I hand people, I'll do a listing, you know, handbook, and I'll put this information in there, and I try to drill into their city or area or whatever.
Right.
And it's amazing how many people will focus in on that, and they're fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And I can't talk about it for hours. I try not to go that direction because, again, the big picture is I'm trying to do a listing presentation, but this is going to help. This is going to help them feel, hey, this guy's the expert. Yep. He understands these markets,
good stuff.
And it gives them some confidence.
That's good stuff. That's very, 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 very good. Very, very good. Also, guys, we are going to get these slides out to you that you've seen here today. I think it's about time to wrap it up. Would you say, Kathy?
Yep, more reports are coming out.
Oh, that's right. And the first quarter market reports will be coming out this week. So be prepared for those so you can get those out to your clients. And it'll be on WebTop for you to download. Well, I want to thank all our guests today, Jennifer, Matt, Quinn. You guys were awesome. My first hosting of the radio show. I apologize for any gaffes.
Well done, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh, really quick side note, if you want to know if Glenn's numbers work, he is pending currently on 8 different transactions.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I didn't even have to ask what his, this kind of stuff attracts a lot of people based on what a lot of agents are like. The differentiation of what you do has got to be huge. I know I'd list with you. This is really good stuff. So I want to thank everybody in attendance and Kathy putting on the show today. Thanks, Kathy. And next week, have we got our agenda yet for next week?
Not yet.
Well, I've got a special one for next week, and we'll get that out to you guys. Yeah, it's going to be, I have an interesting one for next Monday, so stay tuned. Thanks, guys.